welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q. H, I'm bringing very chill vibes to this episode. Do you know why?
Let's see. It's not 420 yet.
No.
Let's see. And I know how big you always go for Hitler's birthday, and you're just so tired the next day.
Yeah, right. I go really hard. Mostly telling everyone that it's terrible.
Mostly protesting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of speaks for itself at this point. You could probably take it easy on that.
Yeah. You know, you're right. I feel like the message has made it to the mainstream that he was bad. No, so it's been snowing a bunch in Colorado lately, specifically Denver, where I'm sort of situated. In that transaction, it's gotten really cold in our house for multiple days in a row. It's just like tough. The sun does melt a bunch of the snow, but where our house kind of casts a shadow, and there's still a bunch of snow like on our, entryway or whatever. And so I've got myself wrapped in right now a heated blanket. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's the
what
best.
An experience. This is nice.
Heated blankets are some of my favorite things. Speaking of snow, I was at work today walking from the parking lot to the building, and I saw a car drive by with just like a huge sheet of snow on top, which is crazy because it's not snowing anywhere close to here. From what I can tell, I have no idea where that car came from. It could just be a prank. It could be fake snow, but
I like that.
Definitely made me do a double take.
It's just like one. Yeah, it's almost looked like a movie prop or something like that.
But yeah, I do like a good heated blanket.
I'm very interested in weighted blankets. I hear about the weighted blankets. People tell me that it's calming and soothing, and I'm all for the improvement of blanket technology.
It's something that's really blossomed in the last few years.
Yeah. It's like we weren't paying attention to the blankets or something. This is like the end result of San Francisco startup culture. Like, do you remember, do you know Allbirds shoes? Allbirds. So they're this wool-based shoe. That was their original thing. They only had one shoe. Now they've got a bunch of shoes. But their whole pitch was, these are shoes you don't have to wear socks with. So all of their marketing was like, what are you wearing, socks, you idiot? Come on. Don't be wearing socks. You can just buy Allbirds. You'll be all set. Then, right, like any startup, investors are like, how are you making more money beyond the thing that you already sell? They started selling socks. And so what do? They have to like turn around and say to all their customers, like, you idiots weren't not wearing socks with these things, were you? So it's just like, it's a never ending funnel that we're all in. So pay attention to marketing, folks, and pay attention to when companies do something different than what they say they believed in a nigh 6 months ago.
That's one of the things that I always think about. I would have trouble being a woman. Is that like, I could probably power through menstruation and giving birth and all those portions and continually feeling in danger of my life every time I go out into the regular world. But like, I feel like the thing that would break me more than anything else is wearing shoes and not putting on any socks. And I don't know how they do it, but it's a surprisingly common thing.
It's incredible. I mean, the amount of, I think only after, and you know this having a partner, men, if you've not been in a long-term relationship or you've not lived with a woman before, women spend something to the tune of, let's say, 20 to 25% of their life uncomfortable. For reasons they can't control, and then another 15 to 20% uncomfortable for reasons to look good and appeal to you and each other. So please be nice to ladies.
Yes, be nice to all people, but especially the ladies. Yeah, unfortunately, my partner spends a great amount more time being uncomfortable because she has to put up with my ridiculous dad jokes all the time. And I'm not even a dad. I didn't even do that portion of it, but
you skipped.
I still got the jokes. I think as soon as my evolutionary instinct understood that my mind was entirely made up not to have children, it was like, well, I guess we got to start the jokes now.
Okay,
then
let's get to the dad jokes now.
Well, speaking of a good dad joke,
yes,
let's get into some
our show.
That's right. The puns will come. Don't worry. They always do. What I want to pitch today is did you play last year a game that came out called Wilmut's Warehouse?
Wilmut's? No, I did not.
So it's a really interesting, very kind of minimalist puzzle game where basically you are organizing a warehouse. You're given an amount of space. It's kind of a grid-based, very minimalist, top-down type of view where basically you have a big empty space and you are given different kind of colored tiles, and you just have to organize them. And you can organize them in any way you want because later you're going to have to go find them and retrieve them for certain things. But for now, they just need a place to land. So they start off fairly simple. You'll have one with like picture of a snowflake on it, and one with a picture of like a cowboy hat on it. And it'll be like, just organize it in whatever way makes sense to you. And so you'll get snowman, you'll get a snow cone, and then on the other side, you'll be getting like fedora and a flat cap and whatever. And you're like, okay, I think I can organize this. And then suddenly it throws in like a woolen hat and mittens. And it's like, okay, does this belong in my group of things I associate with being cold, or does this belong in my group of hats and other type of clothing accessories? And so you kind of have to like make up your mind as you go, organize this warehouse in a way that the blocks are accessible, that you internally understand your sorting systems. And it's a good game about making you kind of second guess your own kind of internal hierarchies and criteria for organization of items and stuff. So what I want to do is something similar, but instead of a warehouse, you are in charge of organizing a grocery store, and specifically all of the shelves, placing all of the items on the shelves, making sure they have enough shelf space, just kind of, I think I'm always so impressed by grocery stores. They have so many things, and every shelf seems to be packed to capacity. Like when they get a new item in, or when there's a new category of items, like when a tofu craze exploded or whatever, like where do they put that? What do they move out of the way? Do they remove an item entirely and slot it in its place? Do they move everything one by one to one side or the other to make room for it? So it's these types of choices that I want to make about sorting a grocery, sorting the grocery aisles and determining what types of foods go next to each other. I was looking for cream cheese the other day and was having the hardest time because I was looking next to all the yogurts and stuff. And I was thinking it looks like this in the little containers they come in. It's like a spreadable,
dairy-ish.
Because it has more in common with yogurts than it has with like blocks of cheese. And so, I was having a hard time trying to find it. And then you start getting into like the sour creams next to it, and it's just, but where do we make these decisions? So I'm going to start the clock and see what comes of this.
Well, first of all, I don't know. We might have stats on. I think the time of day people usually listen to our show is 1 to 2 p.m. by like a large margin. It's pretty incredible. So if you're at work listening to this and you did what I did and Googled gameplay of Wilmut's Warehouse, number one, it's really helpful for a visual, I think, as we talk through this. Number two, holy cannoli, this is a Ryan game that you found on your hands. This is a Q game anyway. I can't believe I didn't play it. There's an additional layer, I think, that grocery stores are dealing with here that I think is interesting to add as like a gameplay wrinkle, which is a grocery store is filled with, at least around the edges, mostly perishable items, right? So you have inventory that's expiring and going bad constantly. So I love the idea of having this almost have like a SimCity-like effect of, there are customers in the warehouse and you have to like, customers are potentially messing up your system. How many times have you put down that little thing of toothpaste or that onion in the garlic section? Come on, admit it. You've done stuff like that before. So people kind of messing with your inventory would be a fun little twist on this too.
I will say I tend to be a pretty considerate shopper as far as putting things back where they belong. And it really pisses me off every time I see somebody leave like a carton of milk or a gallon of ice cream just sitting like on a shelf somewhere. It's like,
that's madness.
What did you, what was your ideal scenario for what would happen to this milk?
Yeah. And I think that like you could, let's say, okay, so one of the things about Wilmot's warehouse is you're relatively alone, right? I love the visualization of everything's just kind of outlines until you get close enough to it to see what it is. And so you have this concept of line of sight, and maybe you're still that, but you're acting as like the store manager or the stocking manager of the store. I love the idea of having employees or little drones that you assign like cleanup tasks to, who go and fix the inventory errors that people have done. Or you just like tell one of them, look, whenever you find a banana, you got to put it in this stand right here. And so you almost start to automate pieces of where you want things organized. So you can, it's almost like Wilmot's warehouse, like that ends in an idle game or something like that.
I've always wondered how they manage to cycle out expiring food. Like, are they checking every package every day? Because even as somebody who buys one box of something, it can sometimes be really, really hard to find the expiration date on that thing, and sometimes even harder to read it once you found it.
Well, they're probably experts, I would imagine. But to your point, the idea of expiring stuff, you would also, if you have shoppers that are coming and like taking inventory, you would want to constantly be doing something that they do in stores, which is facing products, right? Which is taking the oldest stuff, moving it to the front so it's the closest in reach or it's the most visible, and also having something where you're able to sort of go and put the stuff that's going to expire first, I guess. Maybe things don't sell if they're not faced. If they just recede to hard to reach places, people aren't attracted to them.
And always put the expiring stuff on the end cap, or there's always that deep discount basket area. That always feels a little risky.
Yeah.
It's like, am I going to eat this entirely tonight? Let's see.
Right. The manager special. Oh, you can run manager specials. Manager specials are grocery stores' way of trying to move things that are about to expire. So, like, I wonder if you could do a pricing component on top of this too. I mean, not too like to add too many levels of complexity, because I think one of the levels of complexity we haven't discussed, which I'm kind of seeing in this video, is if you were going to grab multiple things at a time to go put it into logistics or fulfillment, you actually have to be able to navigate the space. You have to be able to like take your large thing of shipments and clear a path so that you actually can continue to deliver the stuff. So I'm sure grocery store layout optimization it's a whole world in its own.
I'm very curious. I was just kind of clicking around on Steam, and there is a new game on the new up and coming list called The Convenience Store.
Oh my goodness.
I'm very curious. It appears to be a J-horror game about a college girl on a night shift. So I think we're clear.
Okay. It wouldn't be the first time. Would not be the first time.
So yeah, when you get new items in, I wonder how much trouble it is to like actually move a large quantity of items. And sometimes that requires, maybe you have to move things to an empty freezer on the other side of the store just to kind of get them out of the way for a while. And, you know, all of this, like if you move something off of a shelf, like it's easy to do with like boxes of Cheez-Its or something. But if you are moving, you know, stuff that has to be refrigerated, then you have a certain amount of time before it spoils. So maybe you just have to keep it refrigerated, or you have to move it fairly quickly. What kind of other like miniature obstacles could we kind of put in the way here?
I do like the idea of you get these different stores that you find out that you get that sort of overcooked effect of you get into a store and you realize, oh man, they keep their refrigeration units all the way in the back of the store. So whenever you have some refrigerable, if that's a word, refrigeratable item, it's got a timer on it, right? So it's not something that you can actually take a ton of time to be careful in plotting. It's like, okay, this has a timer and it has a designated destination. But if you create a space that feels like vast enough, or if you've made the path to get there hard enough to move along, now you're in kind of a race to make some stuff work.
I'm also curious about how they determine what goes on sale, because it seems like, I mean, you come back day to day and an entirely different assortment of stuff is on sale than the day before. And I'm just really curious, like, there must be some sort of computer system that's keeping track of expiration dates and what's moving and what's not moving, what they're overstocked on in the back and what needs to be refilled, and does all of that kind of automatically. But then somebody has to go out and actually like physically tape up the new price on everything. It seems like a lot of work.
Get yourself a price gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess the inventory when it comes in would have to be scanned in some way. It's funny because it's like the end of this in many ways. I feel like ties back to a game that I bring up a lot in Factorio, of like, man, a supermarket must be, it's either an incredible machine to watch go through all the stuff,
mm-hmm.
or it might be like, they staff a couple people to just deal with stuff all night long while the store is closed. So they must, maybe grocery stores are actually kind of a mess and they've just got manual labor hours being thrown at it to fix it all. But to that point, if you're going to have like a 24-hour grocery store, it kind of always needs to be constantly humming and improved, and things are going on sale in real time, right? As like the store is still open. It's like, this needs to be marked on sale right now.
Yeah, I wonder how that works, because presumably they would have to update it in the computer system too. Otherwise, people are going to complain when they get to the register.
You could do this whole thing just for the refrigeration section, because people will like drop and break eggs, where they'll find like one bad egg in a dozen, and now you're just like trying to move this this thing of eggs. And I think you could measure success too on like expiry of lost cost or whatever, or you donate or something. I mean, I wonder what happens with all that food. We must waste so much stuff.
Let's call it there. I think we've spent enough time on that one. So what are we going to call this one?
So I know that one principle that grocery stores use to stock is called a just-in-time method. So maybe there's something that's like grocery stores and just-in-time, or we do.
What about like mark it up?
Oh,
then you're in a market and you are marking things up.
Yeah, and the name of it could be Market Up or Up Market or something like that. I shop at Market Up. I mean, I don't...
Market Up's a solid enough pun.
It's good.
All right. Q, what are you bringing today?
Today was a struggle for me. I had literally until 15 minutes before recording, I was like, I'm coming in there and I'm pitching a Battle Royale mixed with Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Okay.
which for anybody who's listened to the show for a long time knows that apparently I did back on episode like 95 or something like that. So I had to pivot, and I had to pivot quickly, and here's what I have. Moonlighter, which is a game I know you experienced recently, but I want to add some Monster Hunter and store simulation elements to it. So imagine a game where you're taking more of a Monster Hunter and Elder Scrolls camera perspective, third or first person, instead of this kind of top-down Moonlighter look. Your job is not to just collect items and put them up for sale, but rather get all these old items from cave diving, dungeon diving, and you want to restore them to their former glory. So old armor you want to like repair stitching on, or the links in the chainmail you want to refinish wood on wizard staffs, and you want to polish swords and axes to their former glory. And the way you do that is by defeating enemies and collecting their hair and bones and bodily fluids and acids and all of that stuff to get the crafting materials necessary to actually do the restoration work on all these kind of fantastical items, and then put them up and almost go home flipper on it and try and make a profit.
All right, we're going to start the clock there. So you're kind of playing a repairman more than anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Or infusing items. That's interesting. You know, there have been a few games where you play a shopkeeper with Moonlighter, and there was, what was the one? I always think Reset Era, like the forum, but it's something like that, in which you play a shopkeeper, and in a kind of JRPG type of setting. I can never quite remember what it's called. But this is an interesting side of things here, where you're kind of the blacksmith or the person who is enchanting weapons. Are you actually? Yeah, I guess you would be going out gathering materials, whether they are like herbs and fungus for your potions, or actual monster bones and stuff for the weapons and the tools that you need to repair them. I think it's interesting because the items that you're building, the things that are most useful to you as a repair person, aren't the same things that you're using to fight the monsters. So you kind of have to balance those two aspects of your character.
Right. Yeah. And I think if you even wanted to have a phase that was almost like a home flipper or a antiques roadshow, or where you're like going to a medieval market or a sort of reseller market. Why can't I think of that? Medieval flea market. There we go. And looking for goods, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm kind of in the forest caves right now, or I'm in the forest right now, and I know I'm gonna have access to maybe like saps from trees and that kind of thing, and that can be used to sort of re-moisturize leather hilts and that kind of thing. So you go through this market and you're like, okay, I think I can do something with that axe, and I think I can do something with this old cup over here. I'm sure, the baseline thing that you can do is just put in a bunch of time and elbow grease to sort of polish up something really simple. But the more elaborate that you go, the more time investment in a piece, maybe that's what drives up the value, and then you can have that feeling of sort of ancient finds, right? And not because you killed a monster and it popped out and hooray, here's something for killing the monster, but instead your own keen eye, because you're trained to get better at hunting out what is actually of value at this weekly market.
And it'd be interesting if there's more ways to get these items, take it in kind of a Minecraft kind of way, where combat is one aspect of it, but there's also mining, there's also farming. And so perhaps based on your specialization, you can take any item down one of several kind of upgrade trees. And then, if you are specializing in farming, then maybe you have more of a kind of a natural earthy bent to the types of weapon restorations that you do. And so it gives people more magical powers as opposed to like raw strength powers you might get from the rocks that you get from mining or something like that. And maybe that affects your clientele. Maybe that affects the way that society develops in a way.
So you're thinking about like, as you attract new levels of clientele, and those clientele potentially put older things or family heirlooms on sale at this market, that you can kind of up level the items available at the market to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, improve things so that so they can sell for more, or they become more useful to the people who own them.
I like that a lot. And then I also love the idea of attracting high-end clientele to, maybe this is the anti-capitalist of me, but to dupe them. So be able to take a poor person's thing and get it, buy it at a price that, you go full Robin Hood and is like generous to the person who doesn't have means, but then kind of polish it up and pass it off as something with a story. Maybe you even do like when you finish a piece, you can do a little mini note or a piece of parchment along with it with a little backstory constructor and write your own fiction for where these items' histories were.
Yeah, and then maybe they could be traded between players' games, and then you get that backstory from game to game, kind of an online marketplace of sorts.
That's interesting. Yeah, and then I think it would be cool to take this sort of idea of running the store and as you go out at night, because this is kind of like, it's also like a little bit Moonlighter in here, knowing that you have to farm certain enemies. You're like, yeah, zombies are the worst, but the all the brains they eat mean that they build up a certain acid in their stomach, and that's great to harvest for my for all my axe restorations. That's what I'm looking for. Or these wyverns have just the right poison fangs that will melt the rust off of this item or the decay off something else.
A certain like Zelda puzzles where you have to feed a certain weapon to an enemy or make them consume it somehow and they spit out a better version of it.
Yeah, that's really cool too. So imagine like having a running into a pack of whatever creature, you name it, and like your main goal is to equip that item and just kind of shove it in them, and you have to like wait a few days and then go back and find that same creature. You're like, okay, one of these guys has a sword in him. I just need to find it, and then I'm gonna it'll be magically transformed into looking beautiful. So you're learning about the sort of bodily properties of the enemies, and you think of them more as resources to be controlled than you do kind of mindless things to extract loot from.
And you can set up your own little farm. That's one of the things in Moonlighter. There's a kind of like a animal pen next to the shop that I don't understand what it's for. When you're in
it takes up a lot of space.
Caves. Yeah, when you're in the caves, you find little like eggs that hatch into like miniature versions of some of the enemies, and they just kind of like hop around next door. And I don't think there's any way to interact with them. They're just kind of there as decoration, but it'd be kind of cool if you could actually like farm certain things from them.
I like the idea of how do we get the concept of this game, by the way, has enough in it that it reeks of launch and early access and just keep building systems on top of it. But do you see, let's talk about a fundamental thing. Do you see this in your mind as like I feel like it would feel simplistic as a 2D thing. I'm imagining it almost as the, Skyrim or the Oblivion first person type of experience. I think that would be like a little bit more, not only visceral for the combat, but give you also a shared perspective so that when you're doing your craftsmanship, you don't get the World of Warcraft like I press the cloth button and I get 40 cloth. Instead, you get the sensation of actually doing the stitching or actually like grinding away rust on a blade.
It's like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah. I think being more, to use a fancy word, diegetic or in the world with what you're doing and not just having it be a series of menus. That could be completely inefficient, but one of the games I've been playing lately is Satisfactory. And Satisfactory, even though it's basically Factorio, it feels completely different being in first person because you're suddenly like the scale of what you're building and the conveyor belts take on whole new meaning and perspective.
I think we're approaching time on that one. Let's go ahead and stop it and come up with a name for it.
What was the name of that game that you just found on Steam?
Wilmut's Warehouse, or is that a different
No,
one?
the one that turns out to be like a JRPG horror game or Japanese horror game.
It was Convenience Store.
Convenience Store. Gosh, I do like the tone of something like that. There's Monster Hunter, there's Moonlighter, there's Elder Scrolls. What could we do with a store? We both have store games this week. How strange is that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm struggling. Maybe it's this heated blanket. I like the idea of using the word shop, but having that ridiculous old English spelling of shop, SHOPPEEEE or something. So maybe it's what do you think of like shop and slash or slash and shop?
Oh, that feels like there's got to be a shopping term that we can throw in there.
Hey, what if we just do like price slasher or something like that?
Price slasher. That sounds good. Sounds dangerous.
It does, yeah.
I do like that edge of not knowing whether or not they're a murderer.
Yeah, that's right. Look out.
I had to go back to the store today because I purchased a suit jacket a couple of days ago, and I wore it today to work to find that they had left the security tag on it.
And of course, you look like a criminal.
Pretty bad. I know. Walking around Microsoft with a stolen jacket that I paid for.
So be honest, did you find out or did someone else tell you?
No, I found out, but I was wondering like how many people noticed. I thought like, hey, I'm looking pretty good. I got my new stuff, it's a nice turquoise coat and I had new pants on as well. It's like
Feeling good.
Yeah, I'm looking good. And then that just, big glaring omission.
Listen to you. Going to Microsoft, putting on a sport coat. You're the man now, H. I hope you realize.
Well, I have to actually start paying more attention to the fine details, I think is the takeaway from
Got
today.
it, right.
All right. Well, anyways, let's get to a listener correspondence. This one comes from Matt Parker, who says, I like the idea of a VR game where you're essentially playing out a scene from Aliens, where you're just watching video feeds of your Marines going into a hostile environment and you need to somehow give orders to them. Imagine the dread you'd feel as their camera feeds show all hell breaking loose. Shouts and screams come through the speakers, and then their monitor goes dead. And there's a little screaming emoji face. I like that. You're also in a hostile territory, so occasionally you need to swivel in your chair and shoot at any baddies that make it to your control room. Maybe this could involve some sort of XCOM element where your team gets better as they survive missions. Perhaps as you end the level, your chair does a bat car type thing and you're in a driving seat. Now you need to put your foot down and drive your team out of trouble. All right. Very cool. Let's start the clock there.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that when you die in this game, we definitely need the clip from Aliens of, that's it, man, game over, game over. So I love this idea. One of the things I like about it is the idea of giving orders, but then having the team get better over time. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, would it be kind of interesting if you give a series of orders? Let's say all your orders start manual, and then after a mission, you kind of do a regroup with the obviously remaining alive members of your team. And you can turn certain sets of commands that you gave into macros. So you can start building up that sort of arcane language that you hear in both the military, but also you get to kind of invent your own. So when you're like, I want to do a 38 Charlie, and that means turn around and kill someone at your 6, your 9, and your 3, and then reload your weapon or something like that. So you can start to like go kind of grouping your commands, but you teach that over time. It's only once you give the series of commands that it sort of unlocks the ability to macro them.
There was a game called Remember Me by Don't Nod, who went on to do Life is Strange and Vampire, which is it's a kind of Arkham Asylum type of combat system in this action adventure game, but you program in your combos in like a menu system, and then in battle you can unleash the combos that you programmed and created, which always seemed like a very clever system. I didn't get that far into the game. I had started it back on PS3, but it's always been one I've been kind of curious to go back to. So that's an interesting idea. I think one of the things that excites me about this feels like a more kind of mobile Five Nights at Freddy's in a way, where the cameras that you're kind of flicking between aren't stationary. But I like the idea that you have all of these body cams, and of course you can only see what they can see. And so you can issue commands, kind of track where everybody is on a map, try to zero in on the different locations. So there's a lot of different things you're trying to pay attention to as you try to triangulate the information that you're receiving. It's just, I don't know, it's an exciting idea. And the idea that you're also kind of trying to, out of the corner of your eye, keep track of your own immediate area. There's a certain kind of challenge that games that the Five Nights games ended up introducing that seemed pretty novel for the time.
I think it would be really, I'm thinking about Alien, I'm thinking about sort of sci-fi movie technology and the tropes and stuff that we see. And I'm going into like Predator land a little bit in my head, and I'm thinking, okay, we're watching, let's say that we do the sort of body cam approach and you can see everybody's body cam, but maybe also part and parcel with that is you can toggle people's cameras between like heat and IR and night vision and all of these different things, so that, you know, maybe you find out that the creatures you're facing per level are like, they can't be seen on infrared, but they show up in the heat map, and like you get that sort of very, you know, tropey sci-fi identifying what you're even dealing with. It has to be like, you have to craft, I think, each level to be like a, what am I even dealing with here? And it's probably, you know, going to be mostly exciting for the first run through.
Did you ever end up playing, what is it called? Do Not Feed the Monkeys?
No, Do Not Feed the Monkeys.
That's a really great game. It was one of my favorites last year. It was a game where you're playing basically a person who is a part of like a secret online community that has access to all of the cameras in the world that are hooked up to networks of any kind, whether that's like somebody's, you know, home security camera or a webcam or a security camera at a gas station, you know, just like all of these different cameras. And you're given kind of control of, you know, a number of cameras at a time. I think you start with like 4 that you can flick between. And then over the course of the game, you could expand to like 12 that you can have up at once. And you're always kind of flicking between these screens and trying to catch activity while it happens in that location, and try to like understand who the people are that live there, or who the people are that pass through the shop or whatever it is, and listen to conversations, learn things about them, pick up details that you can use to like find where that location is. Or, you know, there's all these different like story elements that play out in each of these different scenarios. And it's really interesting because you can only hear or read, in that case, the words that are said by the people within the scenes when you are like focused on that scene. And so maybe there's details that you can watch everybody's body cams, but you can only pick up on certain details by selectively focusing on one at a time, meaning the rest of them are, you know, at that time invisible to you or very harshly minimized. And so, you know, maybe there are times when you have to spy on other people, and you have to choose like which side of a conversation to listen in on, or, you know, there are multiple things that are very important happening at once, and you kind of have to choose where to put your attention, or try to like maybe flick between the screens fast enough that you can follow all of them at once.
Yeah, and I think there's also an opportunity to do something to the tune of kind of, you know, he mentions XCOM here, like taking that XCOM route and having different players with different abilities, or different characters that you end up recruiting and that sort of thing, I think would be kind of an angle that you could play at, because now you can give certain people who are under your command different orders, or different, maybe they have access to different technology even, so that you can play a little bit in that space of, well, if I need to keep this person alive because they're the tech that's going to be able to, you know, speed boost somebody else, or they're going to be able to rescue a downed person in the field. Whereas, like if you're not a medic, you won't have that ability. Yeah,
that's another interesting part of this, where Matt introduces this idea of kind of persistent squad members and being able to level them up, and of course not wanting to lose them because they're the people that you've been training this entire time. Do you play a lot of like Fire Emblem with permadeath turned on, or XCOM with permadeath, or any of those types of permadeath games?
No, I've yet to meaningfully connect with an XCOM game. I've started them multiple times, but each time I'm like, you know, something about it feels strange to me, but I'm looking for my XCOM moment.
I've always kind of wondered if you can find yourself in an unwinnable position by losing some of your best members late in the game when the challenge really ramps up.
Yeah, I do like the idea of permanent death being part of this, especially if, let's say, the story is going to unfold in a way that, like, discovering the secrets might not be necessarily interesting the second time through. I think you could craft a really strong narrative around this and make this feel like a complete series of vignettes of horror stories. So everything from the alien sort of Marines on a thing, but then I think you could do a whole nother vignette, which is you go deep sci-fi and you do like the spaceship commander and the Marines that are in space. You do the ones that are, you can do this sort of Call of Duty take on it where you're doing a raid in a desert and all that kind of, political stuff or whatever. But I think if you handle each one and like the burden of being the commander out of action could be a reoccurring interesting theme.
All right, we're out of time there. Let's call it. Let's give it a name.
You could do something like CO, right? Commanding officer.
Oh, and this is a VR game. I forgot about that.
Yeah, geez.
All right, so you are watching video feeds.
This actually works great as a VR game. I know we hadn't talked about the VR angle, but yes, of course. Let's put this in VR.
This feels like a type of game that would be on Steam, a Steam horror game, not in a bad way, but just because, Steam has very specific horror scene, but a game called Bodycam in like a very stylized text treatment.
Bodycam, it works really well, I think, because, and you're not all you get to see is the Bodycam, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Matt Parker, for submitting that one. And if you would like to submit a pitch to the show, you can do so by emailing us at playwrightcast@gmail.com. You can tweet us at playwrightcast, or you can go to our website, playwrightcast.com/pitch.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And hey, go check out the other great shows on the Kane and Ritz Network. Most recently, I know this will be late for people listening to it, but not that late, the Red Dead Redemption 2 one just came out. So go listen to a deep dive on Red Dead, and one of my favorite and simultaneously maddening at times games where, boy, they need to change that control scheme. I'm convinced, but we'll see if everybody else is.
That's right. We've got a lot of great shows on the Kane and Ritz Network. Tune in, and you'll be plenty pleased for generations to come. I don't know what that means. All right, to take us out of the show today, I have a miniature pitch, and this is taking one of my very favorite first-person shooter crossovers of all time and morphing it into the strategy genre inspired by the Slash pitch. So how about a Chex Quest sequel called ChexCom? That's about right. That's it.
I love
the
it.
Appropriate reaction. All right.
My wife would be crazy for it.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Bye.